Hey there, Rednecks, Preppies, Redneck Preppies. It's me, the Redneck Preppy. How you doing today? Great. Good. Well, friends, we've reached the end of the road. This episode, the 20th in this series, marks the end of the Redneck Rages at Bubba'd saga. After hundreds of molested firearms over the years, I'm bringing this one home. Now, I am planning another video on Bubba guns that will appear in the near future, but this series is done. No particular reason other than I think that after 300 Bubba'd firearms, I've pretty much mined the various ways that they can be ruined. Even the warped imagination of Bubba can only conjure up so much variety. So sit back and enjoy, I think, this final jaunt. It's perhaps appropriate that I did a short and convoluted history of episode on Schmidt-Rubin rifles, because our first example of the day is one of those fine examples that has been, oh boy, well and truly Bubba'd. They turned a straight pull bolt action rifle into a, I'm not even sure this is a phrase, pump action bolt action rifle. Anyway, as you can see, the bolt is actuated by a rod that runs alongside the barrel and receiver that's joined to the pump. Now, I'm not sure whether this would be easier or harder to action than the straight pull it originally was. Either way, if Bubba showed this sort of technical imagination in other fields, we'd probably be back on the moon already. Granted, in a 1996 Ford F-150 turned into a spaceship, but the moon nonetheless. Is your Type 56 just too long to fit into your busy life? Do you wish you could take an already short rifle and make it even shorter and more awkward to shoot? Well, friends, this next selection is probably your jam. Someone decided to graft an underfolding stock onto a Type 56 in the most elegant way possible. Now, what I find even more annoying is the way that Bubba attached that pistol grip. Now, necessary, of course, given that most of the buttstock is gone. Rather than take a few extra minutes to, recess that bolt head or just use a shorter bolt, no, they just let that bolt head sit there showing off that old Bubba skill. Look, if you're gonna Bubba, at least do it with some pride and ability. Well, then again, I guess it wouldn't be a Bubba in that case. In a recent video, I declared the M1 carbine to be my favorite milsurp of all time, an opinion I still hold, by the way, so it causes me no end of pain to see one of my babies so thoroughly Bubba'd that I doubt it could ever come back. Again, a Bubba job with no skill or pride attached, just a conglomeration of random parts and subpar work mixed together that would be embarrassing if it was something that was created in a post-apocalyptic video game. I wish that I'd found a clearer picture of it so that I could hate it even more. Somewhere, David Carbine Williams is planning a crime that would land him in prison again. Hey, look, man, we've all gone through those times when our dreams were bigger than our wallets. There's nothing wrong with that, but man, what's wrong is not biding your time until you can execute that dream properly. Now, obviously, someone wanted a reflex optic on their AR-15 very badly and decided to mount a pistol reflex sight on that rifle very badly. The odd thing is that most of this stuff isn't garbage tier Chinesium. The Vortex mount costs a couple of bucks, and while the Hollow Sun optic isn't going to get love from people like Hoplitfile, you're still looking at a few hundred there. You could have honestly sold those two parts and bought a cheap Vortex red dot and called it a day. Rather, Bubba did this. Damned if I know what this next one is. Is it a bolt action rifle? Is it a break action rifle? Is it both? The real question is whether you'd be dumb enough to actually be behind the trigger when it went off. I wouldn't, but then again, I want to deny my beneficiary a substantial life insurance payout. And no, I'm not going to comment on the leg trap other than to say I hope it's used on game rather than whomever is unfortunate enough to stumble across the owner of this travesty. The FN Model 1949, or FN-49 if you prefer, is one of those military rifles that most people don't pay much attention to. It's obviously a post-Second World War rifle, so it doesn't have the provenance of that conflict to burnish its luster. It was adopted by countries like Belgium, Colombia, Indonesia, and Luxembourg, so it doesn't have that big boy reputation. And frankly, the rifle was outshone by later competitors like the Heckler & Koch G3 and FN's own rifle, one you may have heard of, the FAL. That said, even the humble FN-49 deserves much better than to be molested into this bullpup monstrosity. They didn't sell that many FN-49s, and as a result, they aren't that common, at least on this side of the pond. Well, Canada maybe. So kudos to the Bubba that took a small piece of history and did this. What would an episode be without an SKS-45? Okay, let's pretend that the Type 56 we saw earlier isn't just a Chinese manufactured SKS. Now, someone really put a lot of work into modifying this rifle, though at the end of the day, it's still one of a seeming million bullpupped SKSs. While I hand it to the Bubba for at least using what appears to be a comm block optic on it, what worries me are the straps both at the front and back of the stock. Are they actually holding the stock together? Would this rifle fly apart without them? Either way, it's a spectacularly boring Bubba job. It is, at the end of the day, just another bubba'd SKS. From one comm block disaster to another greater one, and this one combines confusion and an abundance of metal. Is this actually a bullpupped AK? Because, we have a magazine at the back, but there's also one in the usual place. Or is this two conjoined AKs that have each been bullpupped? That would certainly go a long way in explaining the enormous amount of receiver or shroud, I'm not even sure I know the proper terminology for what this thing is sporting, that exists up front. Either way, someone must have been thinking that they were creating like the ultimate futuristic AK and instead made two rifles very difficult to shoot. Achievement unlocked, I suppose. I believe the last episode had a Krag-Jorgensen in it, or Krag-Jorgensen if you want to be proper about it. So why not make it 2 episodes in a row? This one sees a rifle that I can't find to buy one for myself, ruined with the addition of a Madsen light machine gun magazine. So if you can't find a Krag or need a spare magazine for your Madsen, take heart that some jackass ruined not 1, but 2 pieces of military surplus. 2 cheers for their efficiency, I guess. We finally come to a mosin-nagant M9130. They usually do pop up sooner in these episodes. And once again, someone ruined Ivan's rifle by tacticooling it. Can we even use a portmanteau of tactical and cool to describe this, though? There's the magazine that is apparently legally required in every butchery of a Mosin over the past few years. My favorite part of this nightmare, though, is that the pick rail on the front is being held on with hose clamps. I suppose, though, that they're more secure than the straps that were holding together that SKS from earlier. If you want to know why comm block surplus prices have exploded in recent years, this is a small reason. You've heard of the Chicago typewriter? Well, say hello to the Chicago keytar. Well, 80s kids will get that keytar reference. Anyway, let's take a Thompson submachine gun and try and turn it into an FN PS90. The best thing that you can say about this is that it at least fires a real round compared to the PS90. That said, It gives me a headache to see something beloved by mobster and soldier alike turned into something that either of them would be embarrassed to carry. We've seen a lot of god-awful AR-15 builds over the years, and this is definitely one of them. Look, I get not wanting to pay the magpul tax, but this is as low end as it gets. What I have been debating with myself, however, is how dangerous is this actually? See, all the boom boom goes on in the chamber, so as long as the bolt is able to lock, even a wooden lower wouldn't be an issue. I suspect that an actual metal lower is hiding under that wood, so this is probably less redneck than it looks. Well, on that I don't actually know, because that choice in optics is leading me to question anything to do with this. Frankly, that angled foregrip directly mounted to the barrel is the least weird part of all of this. What are the bets that it's not actually a magpul foregrip, but a Chinese knockoff? You think British submachine gun, and most immediately name the Sten, that beautiful SMG you can literally build with bicycle parts. Fewer, however, think of the Sterling, its successor. That's surprising really, given that it lasted in British service much longer than the Sten did. But that's what World War II provenance gets the Sten. At any rate, is this a Bubba job? Some Saudi prince who could afford to procure any SMG on the planet really liked the Sterling, apparently, and decided to turn one into this very tasteful example. I wonder, however, whether it's actually ever been fired. I mean, even Bubba shoot their creations, so this is a waste of a firearm that most of us will never even touch, let alone own. Greatest battle implement ever devised? Well, one person decided that Patton was wrong and that his M1 Garand could be improved. And of course, Bubba's favorite way of destroying a beautiful example of wood and steel is to, yes, tactical it. As the pictures show, Bubba isn't sure whether his creation should remain an unadorned rifle, I mean, if you can say that, or whether it also incongruously needs a bipod and vertical foregrip. Now, as I write this, I had my M1 Garand out recently, and somehow I didn't need an adjustable buttstock, pistol grip, optic, bipod, and vertical foregrip to shoot it effectively. Then again, I know how to shoot a rifle. Did you know that progressive leftists could be Bubbas? I mean, to be honest with you, the thought hadn't even occurred to me until I saw this thing. There's a lot going on here, and I'm probably going to miss some of the choices that were made. I love the fact that the bolt looks so rusty that it probably makes the action of a mosin-nagant look smooth by comparison. The homemade sights that appear to be non-adjustable? Chef's kiss. The portholes ostensibly put there reduce muzzle rise? Excellent. An optic that you might not be able to see through despite all the other barrels welded to the top of the actual barrel? Speaking of welds, that bayonet, touch of class. Well, friends, here our journey does come to an end. Together we've seen all sorts of ungodly things done to firearms, most of them a military surplus, but a fair share of modern rifles that deserved better as well. I'd like to say that I'm sad about ending the Redneck Rages series, but to be honest with you, it's an emotional beating turning these out. Seeing examples of many firearms that I'll never be able to own be ruined by people who just wanted to watch the world burn. Yeah, well, at any rate, I hope you found today's video to at least be vaguely entertaining and mildly informative. As always, may all of your firearms remain safe from the cruel depredations of Bubba gunsmiths around the world. Take care, and bye-bye.